The Labadists were a 17th-century Protestant religious community movement founded by Jean de Labadie, a French pietist. The movement derived its name from that of its founder, Jean de Labadie's life. Jean de Labadie came from an area near Bordeaux. In his early life he was a Roman Catholic and a Jesuit. However, at that time, the Jesuits were wary of overt spiritual manifestations, so Labadie, who himself experienced frequent visions and inner enlightenment, found himself dissatisfied and left the order in 1639. He had fleeting links with the Oratoire, then Jansenism. He was a parish priest and evangelist in the southern French dioceses of Toulouse and Bazes, preaching social righteousness, new birth, and separation from worldliness. His promotion of inner piety and personal spiritual experiences brought opposition and threats from the religious establishment. Eventually, frustrated with Roman Catholicism, Labadie became a Calvinist at Montauban in 1650. In that city and then in the Principality of Orange he championed the rights of the Protestant minority in the face of increasing legislation against them by Louis XIV. Labadie then moved to Geneva, where he was hailed as the second Calvin. Here he began to doubt the lasting validity of established Christianity. He held house groups for Bible study and fellowship, for which he was censured. In 1666 Labadie and several disciples moved to the Netherlands, to the French-speaking Walloon congregation of Middelburg. Here his pattern continued, seeking to promote active church renewal through practical discipleship, study of the Bible, house meetings, and much else that was novel for the Reformed Church at the time. Here too he made contact with leading figures of the spiritual and reformatory circles of the day, such as Jan Amos Comenius and Antoinette Bourignon. With a broad-mindedness unusual for the period, Labadie was gracious and cautiously welcoming towards the move of repentance and new zeal among many Jews in a messianic movement around Sabbatai, Servian 1667. At length, in 1669, at 59 years of age, Labadie broke away from all established denominations and began a Christian community at Amsterdam. In 3 adjoining houses lived a core of some 60 adherents to Labadie's teaching. They shared possessions after the pattern of the Church as described in the New Testament book of Acts. Persecution forced them to leave after only a year, and they moved to Herford in Germany. Here the community became more firmly established until war forced them to move to Altona, where Labadie died in 1674. Labadie's most influential writing was La Réformation de l'Église par la Pastorate. The Labadist community. In the Labadist community there were craftsmen, who generated income, although as many men as possible were sent on outreach to neighboring towns. Children were tutored communally. The women had traditional roles as homemakers. A printing press was set up disseminating many writings by Labadie and his colleagues. Curiously, the best known of all Labadist writings was not Labadie's but Anna van Scherman's, who wrote a justification of her renunciation of fame and reputation to live in Christian community. Van Scherman was noted in her day as the Star of Utrecht, and widely admired for her talents. She spoke and wrote 5 languages, produced an Ethiopic dictionary, played several instruments, engraved glass, painted, embroidered, and wrote poetry. At the age of 62 she gave up everything and joined the Labadists. After Labadie's death, his followers returned to the Netherlands, where they set up a community in a stately home, Walter Castle, at Vuurwoord in Friesland, which belonged to 3 sisters Van Ness and Van Sommelsdijk, who were his adherents. Here printing and many other occupations continued, including farming and milling. One member, Hendrik van de Venter, skilled in chemistry and medicine, set up a laboratory at the house and treated many people, including Christian V, the King of Denmark. He is now remembered as one of the Netherlands' pioneering obstetricians. Several noted visitors have left their accounts of visits to the Labadist community. One was Sophie of Hanover, mother of King George I of Great Britain. Another was William Penn, the Quaker pioneer, who gave his name to the U.S. state of Pennsylvania. A third was the English philosopher John Locke. Several Reformed pastors left the parishes to live in community at Viewwood. At its peak, the community numbered around 600, with many more adherents further afield. Visitors came from England, Italy, Poland and elsewhere, but not all approved of the strict discipline. Those of arrogant disposition were given the most menial of jobs. Fussiness in matters of food was overcome, since all were expected to eat what was put in front of them. Daughter communities were set up in the New World. La Providence, a daughter colony on the Comivine River in Suriname, proved unsuccessful. The Labadists were unable to cope with jungle diseases, and supplies from the Netherlands were often intercepted by pirates. The noted entomological artist, Maria Sibylla Merian, who had lived in the Labadist colony in Friesland for some years, went to Suriname in 1700 and drew several plates for her classic Metamorphosis Insectorum Surinamensium on the Labadist plantation of La Providence. Bohemia Manor of the mother colony in Friesland sent two envoys, Jasper Dankers and Peter Schluter, to purchase land for a colony. Danker, as an experienced seafarer, kept a journal which has survived and has been published. It is a valuable early account of life in colonial New Netherland, on the Chesapeake and the Delaware in 1679–80, and includes several hand drawings and maps. Dankers and Schluter met the son of Augustin Herman, who was a successful Maryland businessman, in New York, and he introduced them to his father in 1679. Herman was impressed with the men and the group. Initially, Herman did not want to grant land to them, only permit Labadist settlement, but in 1683, he conveyed a tract of 3,750 acres on his land, Bohemia Manor in Cecil County, Maryland, to them because of legal issues. The group established a colony which grew rapidly to between 100 to 200 members. In the 1690s, a gradual decline set in, and finally the practice of communal sharing was suspended. For the moment on, the Labadists dwindled, both in Maryland, which ceased to exist after 1720, and in Friesland they had died out by 1730. Key beliefs of the Labadists. The Labadists held to the beliefs and traditions of the founder, Labadie. Chiefly these were: the true Church of Jesus Christ is composed solely of those born again or elect. Habitual church-going while not knowing God personally is nugatory. The true Church is also not of this world. This affects all of life, including clothing. Even so, the Church is always in need of reform, and this should start at the top, with the priests or pastors. Knowing God is not through set religious laws but through personal prayer and mystical devotion. The heart should be warmed through contact with divine love. All members are priests and can bring words of edification in church gatherings, which Labadie equated with New Testament prophetic ministry. To facilitate this, home groups are the best forum. The Holy Communion is only for the truly committed. Self-denial, in particular fasting, is good for the soul. Worldly vanities are to be eschewed and personal wealth shared in the community brotherhood. An Augustinian belief in predestination. Marriage must be in the Lord. A believer can justifiably separate from an unconverted partner in order to follow God's call to his work. Legacy, Influence and Parallels. William Penn records in his journal a meeting with the Labadists in 1677, which gives an insight into the reasons why these people chose to live a communal lifestyle. Labadie's widow, Lucia, testified to Penn about her younger days in which she had mourned the insipid state of the Christianity which she saw around her. "If God would make known to me his way, I would trample upon all the pride and glory of the world. Oh the pride, oh the lusts, oh the vain pleasures in which Christians live. Can this be the way to heaven? Are these the followers of Christ? O God, where is thy little flock, where is thy little family, that will live entirely to thee, that will follow thee? Make me one of the number." Hearing Labadie's teachings, she was convinced of her need to be joined in community living with her fellow believers. Labadie's approach to Christian spirituality, but not his communitarian approach with its separation from mainstream churches, was paralleled in the pietist movement in Germany. Many of its leaders, such as Philip Jacob Spener, approved Labadie's stance but preferred for their own part to trust in the established structures. Some pietist community enterprises did, however, arise. August Frank, professor at Halle University, founded there an orphanage in 1696, to be run along Christian communitarian lines, with equality and sharing of goods. This caused a stir and was famed abroad. Its example inspired in George Whitefield, the English preacher and revivalist, a yearning for a similar foundation which eventually came to being in America. Labadie's works. Labadie's most influential writing was The Reform of the Church Through the Pastorate, Introduction à la piété dans les mystères, paroles et cérémonies de la messe, Amiens, 1642. Odes écrit sur la très durable et auguste mystère du sacrement de l'autel, Amiens, 1642. Traité de la solitude chrétienne, à la vie retirée et du siècle, Paris, 1645. Déclaration de Jean de Labadie, ci devant prestre, prédicateur et chanoine d'Amiens, contenant les raisons qui l'ont obligé à quitter la communion de l'Église romaine pour ranger à celle de l'Église réformée à Montauban, 1650. Lettre de Jean de Labadie à ses amis de la communion romaine touchant sa déclaration, Montauban, 1651. Les élévations d'esprit à Dieu, aux contemplations fort instruisantes sur les plus grands mystères de la foi, Montauban, 1651. Les intuitions d'esprit durant le jour, aux réflexions importantes sur la vie humaine. Sur le christianisme. Sur le besoin de la réformation de ces mots, Montauban, 1651. Le bon usage de l'Eucharistie, Montauban, 1656. Pratiquer des oraisons mentales et vocales. Montauban, 1656. Recueil de quelques maximes importantes de doctrine, de conduite et de piété chrétienne, Montauban, 1657. Les 5 décades de quatrains de piété chrétienne touchant la connaissance de Dieu, son honneur, son amour et l'union de l'ami avec lui, Orange, 1658. La pratique de l'oraison et méditation chrétienne, Genève, 1660. La une religie à la moyenne de la bienfaire, Genève, 1665. Jugement charitable et juste sur l'équité présente des juifs, Amsterdam, 1667. Le triomphe de l'Eucharistie à la vraie doctrine du Street, Sacrement avec les moyens d'y bien participer, Amsterdam, 1667. L'Hérode du Grand Roi Jesus, au classissement de la doctrine de Jean de Labadie, pasteur, sur la reine glorieuse de Jesus Christ et de ses saints en la des derniers temps, Amsterdam, 1667. IDE acute du en bon pasteur et une bonne église, Amsterdam, 1667. Les divins hérits de la pénitence au monde, Amsterdam, 1667. La réformation de l'Église par le pastorat, Middelburg, 1667. Le véritable exorcisme, Amsterdam, 1667. Le discernement d'une véritable Église suivant la Recherche Sainte, Amsterdam, 1668. La puissance ecclésiastique bornée à la Recherche et par elle, Amsterdam, 1668. Manuel de Pietist, Middelburg, 1668. Déclaration chrétienne et sincère de plusieurs membres de l'Église de Dieu et de Jesus Christ touchant les justes raisons et les motifs qui les obligent à n'avoir point de communion avec le synode de Vauclin, Brevet, 1669. Points fondamentaux de la vie vraiment chrétienne, Amsterdam, 1670. Abrégé du véritable christianisme et théorétique et pratique, Amsterdam, 1670. Le chant royal du grand roi Jesus à les hymnes et cantiques de l'anneau, Amsterdam, 1670. Recueil de diverses chansons spirituelles, Amsterdam, 1670. L'Empire du Esprit sur les aims, Amsterdam, 1671. Éclaircissement ou déclaration de la foi et de la pureté des sentiments en la doctrine des SRS. Jean de Labadie, Pierre du Lignon, Amsterdam, 1671. Veritas suive index seu solemnis fide declaratio Herfoldi, 1672. Jesus révélé de nouveau, Altona, 1673. Fragments de quelques poésies et sentiments d'esprit. Amsterdam, 1678. Poésies SACR et acutes de l'amour divin, Amsterdam, 1680. Recueil de cantiques spirituels, Amsterdam, 1680. Le Chrétien régénéré en all, Amsterdam, 1685. Bibliography. The most important study on Labadie's life and works is Trevor John Saxby, The Quest for the New Jerusalem, Jean de Labadie and the Labadists, 1610–1744, Dordrecht, Boston, Lancaster, 1987, Michel de Certeau, La Fable Mystique, XVIE Sickle, Paris, 1987, Pierre-Antoine Fabre, Nicolas Fournier, Sophie Houdet, Maria Cristina Pitassi, Lira Jean de Labadie, Fondation et Franchissement, Paris, Classics Garnier, 2016, ISBN 978-2-406-05886-1. Fabrizio Frigerio, Historiographie de Jean de Labadie, État de la Question, Genève, 1976. Fabrizio Frigerio, La Poesia di Jean de Labadie e la Mistica Quietista, in Conoscenza Religiosa, 1978, 1, p. 60–66. M. Goebel, Geschichte des Christlichen Lebens in der Rheinisch-Westfälischen Evangelischen Kirche, 2. Das 7. Jahrhundert oder die Herrschend Kirche und die Sekten, Koblenz, 1852. W. Goethes, Die Vorbereitung des Pietismus in der reformierten Kirche der Niederland bis zur Labadistischen Krisis, 1670, Leipzig, 1911. Cornelis B. Heilkamer, Reformators. Geschiedkundige Studien over de Godsdienstige Bewegingen uit den dagen onze Garden EEUW, Haarlem, 1900–1902. Leszek Kolakowski, Creations sans Église, La Conscience religieuse et le lien confessionnel OXVIIE Sickle, Paris, 1969. Alain Joblin, Jean de Labadie, Undissident OXVIIE Sickle. In Mélanges de Sciences Religieuses, 2004, Volume 61, n. 2, p. 33–44. Anne Lagny, Les Pietismes et Lage classiques. Kreis, Conversion Institutions, Villeneuve DASCQ, 2001, Johannes Lindeboom, Stijf Kidron van het Christendom, Louvre, 1929. Georges Poulet, Les Métamorphoses du Cercle, Paris, 1961. Jean Rousset, Umbrellen d'oubliés in l'esprit créateur, 1961. T. 1 p. 61-100. Trevor John Saxby, The Quest for the New Jerusalem, Jean de Labadie and the Labadists, 1610-1744, Dordrecht, Boston, Lancaster, 1987, M. Smits van Waasbergen, Het Ontslag van Jean de Labadie uit de Society van Jesus, in Ons Geestelijkheid, 1952, p. 23-49. Otto E. Strasser Bertrand, Otto J. de Jong, Geschichte des Protestantismus in Frankreich und den Niederlanden, Göttingen, 1975. Daniel Vidal, Jean de Labadie Passion Mystique et Esprit de Réforme, Grenoble, 2009. H. van Berkem, de Labadie en de Labadisten, Bladzijde uit de Geschiedenis der Nederlands Hervormkerk, SNEK, 1851.